everyone, Uniquely Cindy here. Stopped in, I want to share some information with you. As this week goes by, I'm going to be uploading some more cemetery videos, roadside cemeteries. Forgive the wind-blown look, I've been out recording this morning. And the question arose, what's the difference between a graveyard and a cemetery? So I wanted to share that with you today. I thought I knew, but in my thinking I had them backwards. So I did some research and I want to share with you the difference between a cemetery and a graveyard. Graveyards were basically graves that were buried, people that were buried on church property. They were buried next to a church. It was considered hallowed ground, sacred ground. And there were people that couldn't be buried in there. A lot of times, if you were not a member of that congregation, you could not be buried there. If you had been convicted of witchcraft, you could not be buried there. If you had committed suicide, you could not be buried there. If you were a convicted felon, murderer, etc., you could not be buried there. So graveyards were basically under the shadow and the protection of the church. And so when you ride by a church and you see graves at the church, that is technically a graveyard. Then as urban life moved into the townships and churchyards just ran out of room to bury people in them, the city started buying plots of land and they would bury people on these plots of land. And that became known as city cemeteries. And as time went on and farms got smaller, in farm country, plantations and other areas got smaller, and times started changing, then it became customary during the Victorian era just to bury most of their families in cemeteries. There are even examples of people having their loved ones moved from a graveyard and being interned in a city cemetery. During the Victorian era, they were made to be beautiful. They would have picnic tables, they had walking paths, people would go and spend times. Some of the ones that I have seen in America is Bonaventure in Savannah, Georgia. That one is absolutely a beautiful cemetery to me. And there's other cemeteries that you have seen on my channel. I can't think of all their names right now. There's one over in London that I visited that is beautiful, and people used them every day for outings and for walking, and people still use them today for walking and all. So that's basically the difference between the two. Now, when you go to a cemetery, some of the cemeteries do have them sectioned off, like you have a pauper section for people who were never claimed. They were died and they were never claimed. The bodies were never claimed, or their families couldn't afford to bury them. So the city would pay for their burial. And usually they're denoted by just a little cement block, not a cement block, I'm sorry, a little cement headstone that just has a number on it. And then you have baby islands, which is usually where you'll find babies that are under 5 years old that have been buried. Most of them are stillborns or babies that died just within a few couple of months. If they don't have a family plot that they have been buried in, then they have baby island. Then you have, in a lot of cemeteries, you'll have the Hebrew section where it's Hebrews, and they're usually denoted, you'll notice them by the Star of David's on their tombstones. Plus they usually have a gate or an archway that will denote the fact that this is the Hebrew portion of the cemetery. One of my most interesting experiences with that part of the cemetery was at Bonaventure. It's the first time I ever saw an orchestra at a cemetery, and we were in the cemetery one day and there was a full-blown orchestra, and it was at a Jewish service, and they were playing. They had the violins, they had flutes, they had all kind of instruments out there, and respectfully playing music during the ceremony, and I thought that was just absolutely beautiful. And then there's parts of the cemetery that may be Catholic. I have been in huge city cemeteries where Catholics were separated. So, you know, you have parts of the cemeteries where your veterans are separated. And it's not that they're separated, they've got designated plots to honor them, the veterans and the Catholics and the Hebrews and all. And so it's beautiful. And going to a cemetery, as you heard me say in my last video, is like going to an art museum. The older cemeteries have such beautiful memorials, beautiful gravestones, and in the future I'm going to be talking about some of the different gravestones because there's different gravestones that represent different things, and it is a language unto itself. So I hope that you enjoyed learning a little bit about the difference between cemeteries and graveyards. Yes, you have family cemeteries that are in their own property or on their own property. The one I'm going to be uploading later is a family cemetery that I ran across yesterday here in Rocky Mount, and I went back today and recorded it. So you have those. As I mentioned before, in my home in Georgia, one of my family members has a cemetery on their land for family members that pass away and wish to be buried there. So there's a lot of customs, there's a lot of traditions, there's a lot of things that go into the funeral rituals, and I'm going to be talking about that some more in the future. And it's very interesting, and I hope you enjoy the unique visits that we have together. Once again, this is Uniquely Cindy. Like and comment below. Hit that notification bell. You'll get notified whenever I upload a new video. And subscribe, because you're helping a girl out and you get to stay and get all the latest information as I learn and we learn together on this unique journey. You have a great day. Bye-bye.